手加減抜きよ。本気でかかってきて。
Hello guys, welcome back to another Nioh 2 guide video. This is a follow-on from my last video which showcased advanced techniques for incorporating jutsu and yokai abilities into your combos as well as animation cancelling, and in this one we're going to be focusing more on melee combo pressure, combo stagger and key break loops, and the current best yokai abilities to help you apply that pressure depending on the situation. I will also show a build at the end of the video that I currently preference for this kind of playstyle. So you've probably heard the term pressure used in a lot of games, and whilst overall it will always refer to the same idea, the rule set behind applying pressure to enemies is obviously going to depend on the game you're playing. So in Nioh 2's case, the objective of pressure combos is being able to attack with such fluid frequency that it doesn't give the enemy an opportunity to fight back or recover. And there is going to be two basic rule sets on how to apply this pressure, and they're going to depend on if you're fighting humans or yokai. The basic difference being, against humans they will either be guarding or they'll be attacking. In most situations, if they're guarding, you can freely attack anyway, but if they are attacking, you can counter them as well as stagger them with basic melee attacks. There are a couple of exceptions to this, such as humans like Sakata Kintoki, who have an incredible amount of hyper armor and will essentially bypass all of your attacks, and even their attacks themselves are near uninterruptible, and in these cases you'll be applying the yokai rule set to them. But for the most part against humans, you'll have one rule set for approach and a second one for yokai, who are of course different to humans in that in most cases, especially with bosses, they don't guard and you can't stagger them outside of yokai abilities until you've broken their key, at which point you can stagger them with melee attacks, but then of course they realm switch and then you have to restart the process. So this requires a completely different approach when it comes to applying pressure. Now in terms of cores for yokai abilities, there is of course a near infinite amount of creativity when it comes to what you can use and what you can combine to create effective combos, but for this video we're going to keep it simple. I carry Ippon specifically for yokai and Skeleton Warrior and Aberrant Soldier for humans. Of course I can use all three against either, but that's just the general idea behind what I use them for. Ippon is going to serve as a stagger, and in terms of yokai pressure, it's entirely going to revolve around staggers and crowd control. Whereas Skeletons and Soldier are able to not only provide a cheap animation cancel, they also force guard or stagger pressure onto human enemies, allowing you to chain melee attacks together freely. Soldier is my main cancel, and Skeletons have the unique benefit of providing cover fire whilst you move into attack, so a human enemy is either guarding or taking stagger damage or attempting to dodge arrows whilst you're advancing. Now in terms of jutsu, there is one thing that will make your life significantly easier, and I think I use it in pretty much every clip in the montage against humans specifically, and that is Life Seal Talisman. This drastically diminishes the enemy's ability to regain ki, which is really what allows you to completely exploit infinite loops, which is basically just the simple act of using an active skill, yokai ability, active skill, yokai ability, and essentially leaving them helpless because they can't regain their ki to recover from it. And of course the act of breaking an enemy's ki immobilizes them, so every time they regain that sliver of ki to recover, it's immediately broken again by the next hit. And if you want to be stylish, this is of course where you can further exploit that by using special active skills that are activated specifically from an enemy being out of ki. Now very quickly before we get into that, shout out to two people on YouTube who helped inspire a lot of the techniques that I went on to practice for this video, one of which I mentioned in my last video, who is Batman VK, who made a video on a specific sign of the cross loop that kind of pushed me to start experimenting with Life Seal Talisman to see what other kind of loops I could find. And the other YouTuber is Kagirashi Maru, who recently made a video showcasing key break, Odachi retrograde flow into weapon switch ton for Demon Fang, and things like that, which is what you saw me do several times in the montage. So that's one tip, by the way. If you're trying to get better at the game, stop looking up OP one-shot builds, look up videos by using certain keywords such as advanced combat guides, tech, animation cancelling. Videos like that are what's going to make you better at the game. Of course having a really strong build makes things easier in terms of clearing content, but once you're done with endgame, it's really the depth of the combat system that's going to make you stick around anyway. So as mentioned, there are various weapons that have access to key break specific skills. So you have retrograde flow on Odachi, charging bull on Odachi, Demon Fang on Tonfa, battering ram on fists, fatal thrust on spear, cloud crush on axe, heron kick on split staff, chain pull on Kusarigama, and I'm sure there are several more. All of these skills can either be chained in a loop with the use of Life Seal Talisman and a correctly used yokai ability between each hit, or you can incorporate them at the end of a specific combo for stylish effect. And of course, in some cases, as seen with Retrograde Flow on Adachi, you can even combine these key break skills together in a single move due to Retrograde Flow knocking the enemy into the air rather than away from you. So whilst the enemy is in the air, you have time to switch to a secondary weapon and hit them with that key break skill. Now, when it comes to general pressure against humans and utilizing yokai abilities, Soldier is going to be the best example of cancelling out of your attack animation, not always for the actual act of animation cancelling itself, which is of course useful, but what it's doing is applying a continuous stream of attack, because instead of key pulsing, which is enough of a small window for the enemy to recover, you're instead sending out a projectile, which the enemy is either going to have to block, try to dodge, or it's going to get hit whilst you're coming in with another attack. So there's no time for the enemy to attack you before you're already on top of them again, as well as the fact they have no opportunity to regain their key. If we take a look at Ippon, for example, against humans it can often be blocked, but with the use of pressure you can bypass that. So if we take a look at the example where I'm using the fist weapon, after he's knocked down I animation cancel with Soldier, which also intentionally forces him back up from the ground. I hit him with a high stance dash attack, which forces the AI to have a reaction that prevents it from blocking the follow-up Ippon. And this is something you can chain, so the basic idea here is figuring out what the enemy can counter, then finding something you can fit into the combo that prevents them from being able to counter it. Once you've done that, you've essentially invented your own combo loop. And so that is the basic approach to pressuring human enemies. So as mentioned, yokai are a little bit different, and unlike humans, they also have phases due to realm switching. So the basic objective of yokai is to break their key as fast as possible, and during that process, in order to apply constant pressure, you need to apply staggers and crowd control. This is where Ippon comes in. On most yokai, landing an Ippon will stagger them for about 1 to 2 seconds, which is enough time for you to land some hits before you need to follow up with another stagger. Now in theory that's easy, in practicality not so much, because Ippon is fairly expensive and on most builds you won't be able to land more than 2 or 3 in quick succession before you're completely out of anima. So this is where you incorporate crowd control through jutsu, as that is entirely separate from your anima resource. Now if you didn't watch my last video, I highly recommend you do, because that is where we talked about one of my favorite techniques, the spirit switch, which is the main way I apply crowd control. I essentially switch into Genbu spirit, throw out a guardian spirit talisman, which is going to send the boss into the air. That lets me charge up a big damage active skill, and we can recycle the rotation from there. At some point, depending on the difficulty of the engagement, the boss is going to have its key depleted, which presents you with 2 options. You can either let a crazy combo fly, because the boss is going to be a free target for several seconds due to being staggered from basic attacks whilst its key is depleted, or you can try and break its max key bar, which will then see it fall down for a grapple. Typically what I'll try and do is a combination of damage then grappling at the last moment. This is particularly important in high level depths where you might need to remove curses from bosses, and grappling is the most efficient way to do that, even if grappling isn't the most efficient form of damage depending on your build. But anyway, the basic approach to pressuring yokai is stagger, damage, crowd control, damage, repeat until key is broken. Now this part is going to be very build specific, but also depending on your build you can utilize other things. So with the current build that I'm using, I have the Baku spirit, which can briefly apply paralysis, and even if that paralysis lasts a microsecond, that is enough time to prevent an incoming attack and then leave a window for me to attack, which not only means more damage for me, but it's also an extra couple of seconds where I don't have to cast anything like Ippon, which helps me manage my anima. So generally my opening rotation will be Guardian Spirit Talisman Baku, Lightning Feathers animation cancel into Ippon, melee damage, Guardian Spirit Switch into Genbu with Guardian Spirit Talisman, damage, Ippon, Spirit Switch into Genbu, etc. And if you have Sloth on Omyo rolled onto one of your accessories, this will of course make your life a lot easier, pretty trivializing and makes things perhaps a little bit too easy, but it's great if you're trying to practice, in which case you'll inevitably be a bit slow when trying to chain dozens of different mechanics together, switching spirits, switching stances, etc. Which brings me on to another big tip. You really need to take the time to learn how to stance switch fluidly. Switching stances during combos needs to become second nature to you. That seems to be one of the main comments I get when people ask me for advice. People always seem to say, yeah, I've got this down, I've got that down, the only thing I'm not comfortable with is switching stances. And I can understand that, because it does stack a massive secondary layer of complexity to what you're doing. because not only do you have the physical action of switching stances under pressure, but you also have to maintain memory of what different skills are attached to those different stances. And the biggest tip I would give in regard to mastering that aspect of combat is don't think about it. Go in a dojo and practice. Repeat a specific process over and over. After doing that for maybe a couple of hours, all that stuff will become muscle memory. If I have to think about what I'm doing, I'll mess up. That's way too much data for your brain to try and process in a few seconds if you're trying to create a complex sequence of events from short-term memory or long-term memory. The only way you can do it is from muscle memory, and you'll be surprised just how fast you can learn very complex sequences just by training it over and over. Like, ask anybody who plays Tekken or fighting games at a high level, or even things like, I don't know, Devil May Cry with insane combo chains. It's a combination of muscle memory and reaction. It actually has very little to do with thinking. That said, there are benefits to thinking in combat, and whilst that's usually more relevant to PvP games, it does have a place in things like Nioh 2 in regard to positional awareness and baiting. You can still bait AI. You know, if you take a sharp movement towards the enemy or position yourself to bait an attack, that is something you can capitalize on. Being aware of your opponent's actions, having positional awareness, this is where the majority of your thinking resources are being used. All the complex stuff is muscle memory and reaction. To use a visual example, I'll show you my favorite hatchets and spear combos on humans, as that can require a combination of thinking and reaction initially, because it revolves around parries or perfect guards, so it takes a bit of awareness and fast reactions to bait and successfully parry an enemy attack. Once you've achieved that though, you're able to autopilot and send out an entire combo that you've practiced 500 times before. So for example, boulder breaker into skeletons, into high stance piercing hurl. If I break their key, we transition into wild surge, which will auto grapple, and from there we can either repeat the loop, rotation, or we can start to freestyle. With the spear, mid stance bracing breeze parry into soldier, into low stance switch Chidori, launch into Chidori attack, into soldier, into Chidori launch, let them come down without attacking, then soldier, then into either flying monkey stab or Calder herd. Also, a little tip for people that don't know, if you shoot soldier and it makes the enemy roll away with their key broken, the new skill Fatal Thrust on Spear will grapple them from miles away. It's actually kind of broken, so definitely try that out if you did not know that about that skill. So now let's take a quick look at the build I use for all of the footage in this video. And for a playstyle like this where we are continuously using yokai ability chains and cancels, we need a lot of anima. So I'm running a combination of Sarutohiko's Grace and Magatsui's Grace. Sarutohiko gives us +2 anima increase, melee damage versus corrupted, but most importantly, Blood of the Yokai, which increases the rate of anima we earn per stack. Magatsui's Grace is giving us +1 anima increase, sentience charge, yokai ability damage to corrupted, but most importantly, anima charge, awakened weapon. For the armor, I'm using a Tengu mask, which gives 10% super efficient yokai abilities, which recovers a portion of the anima spent when using a yokai ability. And for the rest of the armor, it doesn't matter. I'm using random light armor pieces because I like to play with AA agility, which means I'll get one shot if I get touched, but I'm extremely mobile, have great key management, and ultimately it just makes encounters more intense, which only elevates your rate of improvement at the game, as if you're not challenged you won't improve. That said, most people will probably want to run something like Veteran's Armor or something else that isn't light armor. When it comes to stats, mine aren't even remotely optimized because I'm not using this build for high level depths or anything like that. It's just for fun combat play. But for your weapons, they'll need to be corruption, ideally with Mystic Dyad, unless it's something specific like Spear where you might want to preference manual flourishes. And if you're going to mimic my stats, you'll want either change to attack stamina, courage, or magic on that weapon if it doesn't scale with that weapon naturally. Those are the 3 stats that I have at 150, which we'll get into later. If you're running an AA agility build like I am, make sure you have damage bonus equipment lightness on your ranged weapons. Otherwise, take damage bonus agility if you're running medium or heavy armor. On the headpiece, you'll want either anima charge or anima. In this case, because we have super efficient yokai abilities as an auto affix, we've gone for an anima star roll. The most important stat on the chest piece is sentience charge. I have max equipment weight reduction to benefit from equipment lightness bonuses on the ranged weapon and in the Tonfa skill tree. On gloves, you want melee attack key consumption. On waist, you want sentience charge. On boots, you want extended dodge invulnerability. Other than those piece specific rolls, you want the same generic bonus star rolls on all armor pieces, which is going to be things like active skill damage and melee/active skill key damage. My accessories are terrible for this build. Only one is decent, which is this one. Japanese scissors increase anima, and we have both sentient charge and melee damage versus corrupted. On this accessory though, it's pretty trash. I do have some that have sentience charge and melee versus corrupted, but I really wanted sloth on Omyo and needed that to be on one that also was a set bonus requirement reduction. but I do have manual rolls of Anima Charge, and you'll see I also have Paralysis Accumulation. This is just for when I use the Baku Spirit Talisman. For my scroll I have Ultimate Magic, Ultimate Courage and Ultimate Stamina, which I would say are probably the best ultimates overall. I have Anima Charge, Extended Curse Nullification and Path of the Demon. Path of the Demon isn't that important, you can put whatever you want there, but you will want all of those 3 ultimates. Though obviously Ultimate Stamina will only matter if you're on either end of the extreme, being either super light armor or super heavy armor. So for our spirits we have Baku, which gives Anima Charge, melee damage versus corrupted accumulation and the ability to help lock down enemies with paralysis via Spirit Talisman. My second spirit is Genbu for the reasons we've already covered. For the cores we have Ippon, Skelly and Soldier, which we've already covered, but I will say for the secondary rolls on those cores you want either super efficient yokai abilities or direct anima increase. For the jutsu, Guardian Spirit Talisman, Ninja Feathers of your choice. I use Lightning. Now against humans, Life Seal, which we've covered. However, if you're going to be playing against yokai specifically and you're planning on doing that, then swap this out for Soul Leech Talisman. Soul Leech is insanely good against yokai because you can go from 0 to max anima just by shooting this at yokai. So if you're farming boss rooms, for example, you don't need to use Lantern Plant Fruit pre-fight, you can just open your combo with Soul Leech, and if you've got Sloth on Omyo on your accessory, then you can get a free Sloth out of it as well. I'm running with Last Gambit Pill because I get one shot anyway, so I might as well maximize the cannon aspect of being a glass cannon. Lantern Plant Fruit for those emergencies. Fire Familiar Talisman for applying confusion. So now we have everything we could possibly stack in terms of confusion procs, because we have this for fire, Lightning Feathers for lightning, Genbu Spirit Guardian for water, and of course corruption on our weapon and our first spirit. Quick Change Scroll for when we inevitably do get one shot. Protection Talisman can save you from being one shot if it's something like splash damage or a weak attack. Arc Yokai Talisman is essential for build synergy when it comes to Anima Charge. Extraction Talisman is not that important on this build actually, it's just a force of habit. I usually always carry this for life on Amrita Absorption, so it doesn't actually have that much use in this build, it's just a staple for pretty much every other build you'd ever play, so I tend to always carry it. But anyway, we also have Barrier Talisman for essentially infinite ki with this build. Finally, our big damage buffs of Carnage and Soul Purge, if I don't feel like messing around and I just want a boss to die in under 10 seconds. So for my core stats, I am max level at 750. All we need at 150 is Magic for Ultimate Magic, which drastically increases the duration of our buffs and offensive spells. Stamina for Ultimate Stamina, which gives us access to AA Agility, and finally Courage for Ultimate Courage, contributing to that infinite ki by not only increasing our ki regeneration but reducing the ki cost of attacks and penalties when in the Dark Realm. Everything else is personal preference. I have 100 in everything except Constitution and Dex because I use this build to play every weapon. I'm going to get one shot in most cases anyway due to light armor, so I don't really need the Constitution, and 30 Dex is more than enough to carry all of the ninjas so I need to carry, which by the way also includes Sneak Thief and Catwalking Scrolls, which I often use to run to the end of missions or sneak to specific areas of the underworld such as Kodama without being detected. For my focus levels, I'm so far dumping everything into attack until I reach 1000, and then I'll probably dump into luck or ki recovery. For my clan, I'm using Hachisuka for yokai ability, ki damage and anima charge. And so for final points of interest in your shifting tree, do make sure you max out Haste and Awakening for sentience rate, Enduring Awakening for awakened uptime, and then anything and everything that relates to anima, so Earth Vein, Dragon Vein, Imperious Strike, Dragon's Echo, Absorb Yokai Realm, Devour Yokai Realm. If you plan on doing weapon switch combos or weapon switch key break loops like shown earlier, then you're probably going to want to turn off Flash Attack, which by the way, someone please tell me, because this is really starting to annoy me. There are multiple skills you can just deactivate, either in the skill tree or in the weapon skills customization. I can't seem to find a way to deactivate Flash Attack without completely respecking the samurai tree, which is really annoying because I often like to play with Flash Attack, so I'm constantly respecking. If I'm being an idiot and there is a way to just deactivate it, please let me know, because I haven't found it yet, so I assume you just have to respec if you want to turn it on and off. I guess finally, when it comes to customizing your skills, obviously everything you use to key break, you want to attach Masterful Slice to. Any skill you use as a combo filler, then you might want to consider applying Imperious Strike for anima charge. Any skill that you know for a fact you're never going to key pulse from, so for example for me, Flying Monkey, I 100% of the time leave that animation via a yokai ability. I never key pulse from it, and to be honest, you never used to be able to key pulse from this anyway until recently when they added that in the patch, so I'm used to it. But for that reason, on skills like that, I apply Reckless Slice because it's a free 10% damage increase to a skill that you have no intention of key pulsing out of anyway. And then of course, any skills that you use simply for big burst damage, that's where you're going to apply relevant damage bonuses, so in this case magic, stamina and courage. I think that's everything for this video. If you have any questions in regard to anything specific you might have seen in the montage or anything I've said in the video, feel free to ask me in the comments and I'll do my best to reply to you directly. That said, you're more than welcome to join our Discord, which is the best place to try and get a hold of me, as well as get feedback from the other awesome members who are always happy to help, be it with questions or helping trade for scrolls or whatever else you might need. Links will be provided in the description and pinned comment. I do want to try and get a couple more videos out before the release of Monster Hunter Rise, which will be taking up most of my time come the end of March, so hopefully I'll be able to get that done. Until then, if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up as that really helps me out, and if you're not already subscribed, consider doing so for more Nioh 2 content coming soon. Okay guys, until next time, stay safe and take care.